Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Happy Super Bowl weekend, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Kayvon Izami, coming at you guys. Really excited for everyone joining us. We've got an awesome weekend ahead of us. And obviously a lot to talk about. It's crazy. Usually Super Bowl week, it's all you talk about is the game and what's going to happen within the game and all that stuff. But because the NFL has become such a 24/7, 12-month, every single minute type of business where news is happening all over the place, there's so much to talk about. Now, we're obviously going to spend majority of these shows, coming up with the Super Bowl here, talking about our picks, talking about what we think is going to happen, having some fun with the game, obviously. But we also have to talk about the big storylines going on outside of this particular game, such as Matthew Stafford is now going to be a Los Angeles Ram. Jared Goff heading to Detroit. That's a big change. LA to Detroit. Stafford finally gets this team that he's coveted, with a good defense, a good offense, a great head coach. Did LA make the right move, though? They gave up a lot to get an older quarterback. They gave up a lot to really get this contract of Jared Goff's out from under their belt. Detroit. Does this tell us that Detroit is rebuilding, or do they feel like they can win with Jared Goff for a little bit? Are they going to draft a quarterback with their early round pick? These are all things we'll have to talk about, and it looks like as I'm speaking here, listen, a little advice for all of you out there. If you don't have Adam Schefter as alert on your phone, on your Twitter, where you can alert it so whenever he tweets it pops up, you need to do it. Okay, you are missing out if you don't have that, because whenever there is breaking news, whether it's fantasy, whether it's real life information on a trade in the NFL, that is going to come up and you're going to get that before anyone else that doesn't have the notifications. And right now, Adam Schefter is dropping Shefty bombs, letting us know that we are a couple of days away from a Carson Wentz trade happening. So we got Matthew Stafford getting traded. We're about to have Carson Wentz traded, it looks like. My, oh my, Eagles fans, how do you feel about that? And then there still is the biggest fish in the sea, Deshaun Watson trade, lurking, waiting to see what's going to happen there, as a wrinkle has happened in that situation where we have GM Nick Caserio of the Houston Texans, the owner Cal McNair, coming out and saying, we're not trading Deshaun Watson. So Watson's still holding his ground, saying he wants to be traded, but will he take it far enough and not play? If they don't trade him, will he take it to the point of sitting out and not trading? Look, everyone that's listening to me, I'm on Watson's side of this. I believe he deserves to have the power. I believe he should make this type of move, because what Houston has done over these last couple of months, or over the last, year, it's been nothing to benefit their franchise young quarterback in Deshaun Watson, and then they've made it even worse over these last couple of months. So there is so much going on. Obviously, we will talk about the Super Bowl as well. So we are now, Super Bowl Sunday is right upon us here, and it's going to be a hell of a game. Right now, we have the Chiefs are favored by 3. Some places you can get it by 3.5. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens here. Look, I will give you guys my picks. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I do, but I think that at the end of the day, the defense for either side is going to be the key on winning, right? So the offense is going to do their thing. When you have guys like Mahomes, when you have guys like Brady, those guys are going to step up and play their best in the biggest moments. But the defense is going to be what decides this. If you guys remember a couple of years ago, we had the New England Patriots taking on the Philadelphia Eagles, right? Nick Foles, that was the Nick Foles year, and he had the game of his life in that Super Bowl. It was a high-flying, I think Tom Brady threw for over 500 yards. I think Nick Foles threw for 400-plus yards, and it was just back and forth scoring. But what decided that game? It was Brandon Graham strip sacking Tom Brady in that Super Bowl, right? So that's what I'm talking about. It's going to come down to a crucial defensive play, a key defensive moment, who has the less turnovers on offense, which defense can get to the quarterback more. These are going to be the key moments throughout the game that I'm going to be watching. I'm also going to be really there. I'll be breaking down with you guys some of the matchups within the game that I'll be watching, but one in particular, Devin White, okay? Devin White, the linebacker on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, in my opinion, has become the best linebacker in the game. He's only in his second season in the NFL, and he has become a top-notch linebacker in the game. And I want to see, do they line him up against Travis Kelce? Do they put him with the task of taking on the best tight end in the game in Travis Kelce? We haven't seen anyone be able to shut down Travis Kelce, and I think it's going to take more than just Devin White. But I want to see how they start the game, because I imagine that they're not going to play man against Tyreek Hill because of what happened last time. As we all know, Tyreek Hill went for like 8 touchdowns and 1,000 yards in one game against the Bucs earlier this season. So Todd Bowles, who is a fantastic defensive coordinator, he's going to switch things up. And we're going to see how he changes his identity of a defense from then what we saw earlier in the regular season. Remember, even how dominant the Chiefs were that game, they only ended up winning by 3 points. They let Brady and the Bucs come back, and Brady threw 2 interceptions that game in Chiefs territory. They were driving to score, and he threw 2 crucial interceptions, and they still only lost the game by 3 points. So if I'm a Bucs fan, I'm looking at that with a lot of optimism. Right? I'm looking at that and I'm saying Tyreek Hill had the best game of his life. The Chiefs absolutely dominated us. Brady did not play a good football game. And at the end of the day, we only lost the game by 3 points. Okay, that makes me happy. But if I'm on the Chiefs side, I'm looking at it like this. And I'm saying the Chiefs played the game, Tyreek Hill played the game of his life. And then did they kind of slow down? Did they take their foot off the pedal and kind of slow down, which ended up leading the Bucs back into it? And then when they needed to get a first down and end the game, they did. So it makes you think, okay, they slowed down, but when they needed to put their foot back on the pedal, hey, look what happened. They got it. So those are going to be things that I'm going to be looking at. Now, I like to do something before these Super Bowl games where I like to get a pen and paper. You guys know I'm always talking about my pen and paper, right? Where I just like to write down notes of things that I'm thinking about to talk about during the week on the show. So I'm thinking about that, and I'm writing down during this week, and I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to write down the 10 best players in this game from both sides. All right, just the top 10 best players in this game. And I always like to do this for big games, big playoff games, Super Bowls. And usually if you start to see, okay, it's 7-3, right? Or it's 6-4. There's 7 players on this team, and there's only 3 on the other in the top 10. It makes you think, okay, I feel like then that team with the 7 players is going to win, right? Because they have more of the top-notch players in this game. So I decided, okay, let me write this out and see how it comes out. And it was very interesting. And I want to read that off to you guys. So I'm going to give you guys my top 10 of the best 10 players in this game. I'm going to break down some matchups within the game. And then, of course, I'm going to give you guys my prediction of the actual game. That is all to come, all right? So we will talk about that for sure. Now, also, things we're going to look at. we're going to talk about the Matthew Stafford trade. Because what happened here, the Rams did something, and they did the right move. I think they did. I like the move that they made, but they're telling us one thing. And I think that this one statement that they're telling us is getting overlooked a little bit. And it's putting a lot of pressure on one person. And I mean a lot of pressure on one person. And we'll get to that in just 1 second here. But I want to quickly hit on this, okay? Matthew Stafford, right? He is 32 years old, which, if you look at it in terms of Aaron Rodgers and mainly Tom Brady's age, it's not old at all, right? I mean, Tom Brady's 42 years old, balling out of his mind. Now, obviously, Tom Brady is an anomaly, right? Tom Brady is not, and this doesn't happen all the time. This is actually the first time in the history we've ever seen Tom Brady do what he's doing in his 40s. And we probably won't see it again, but with technology and medicine and all that stuff, these guys are able to play much longer. So I'm not worried about it in terms of age, the trait. I want to get that out of the way, right? And real quick, for those that don't know, or that have been under a rock for a couple weeks or whatever, Jared Goff, former quarterback of the Los Angeles Rams, is going to Detroit. And the Rams are sending 2 first-round picks, one next year and one the following year, so 2022 and 2023, as well as a 3rd-round pick this year. Now, a lot of you might say, why aren't they getting a first round this year? Well, they're not getting a first round this year because the Rams don't have a first round pick. The Rams actually have not had a first round pick since 2016. So they are going on 5 years without a first round pick. And they're still in the playoffs almost every year. It's amazing. And I talked about this last episode because remember, if you guys remember, this news dropped right towards the end of my last podcast. I was in the middle of recording it. I got that Adam Schefter tweet because I have him on notifications, and I went right into it. And it didn't really give me time to process it. But now I've had some days to process it, so I'm coming back at it, but I still am coming at it with the angle that I talked about in the moment on my last show. And it's so interesting to me what the Rams are doing, because they're changing the way people look at first-round picks. I mean, think about it. These first-round picks in the NFL, it's not like the NBA, right? The NBA first-round picks do not mean anywhere near what it means in the NFL, right? A lot of teams in the NBA, they will trade their first-round picks in a heartbeat to get a superstar, a.k.a. look at what the Los Angeles Lakers did for Anthony Davis. Look at what the Brooklyn Nets just did the other week for James Harden. They just gave up 4 first-round picks. Like, first-round picks is nothing compared to a superstar, right? In the NBA, in the NFL, first-round picks are like a block of gold. You don't talk about trading your first-round pick unless it's really serious. You know, that's why you hear Deshaun Watson. Oh, it's going to take 3, 4, maybe 5 first-round picks because you don't get a guy like Deshaun Watson. And if you're going to get a guy like Deshaun Watson at 25, 26 years old, well, you're going to have to give up a lot of those gold bricks to get him, right? So the first-round picks in the NFL are so coveted, and they've always been so coveted for a long time. But the Rams are changing that narrative. Now, will that narrative stick? Maybe, maybe not. But in their mind, they're looking at it and saying, I understand that you guys think that these first-round picks are special, but nah, not to us. And they've traded their first-round pick every single year for the last 5 years, and now they have another 3 more years now of no first-round picks, and they continue to win, right? Think about it. They've made the playoffs every single year but one, and that 1 year that they didn't make the playoffs, they still had a winning record. They went 9-7. A lot of years, 9-7 will get you into the playoffs. That year just had to be a stacked year in the NFC. So when you look at it, it's a dangerous game that they're playing. It's a very dangerous game. It's very risky. And it's something that I would never advise an organization to do. You could call it reckless unless you know what you're doing. And a lot of you guys are asking, okay, Kayvon, well, how are they still making it work? And they're making it work because they have faith in their coach, Sean McVay, and he's proven they can lean on him. And also they have faith in their scouting department and their general manager, Les Snead. They are hitting on draft picks. See, first-round picks are so important in the NFL, but if you don't hit on your later round draft picks, you can hit on your first-round pick every single year. You still have to find depth on your team. You still have to find that Grady Jarrett stud defensive tackle in the 5th round, right? You still have to find that Cam Akers second-round running back, that Dalvin Cook second-round running back. You still have to find these Aaron Jones 5th-round running back. Like, you still have to find these type of hidden jewels so that you can still have your team, because you get these guys on cheaper contracts, right? So that's what they've been able to do. They've been able to hit on guys in free agency on lesser contracts, right? And they've been able to hit on their deeper round draft picks, which is why they're able to survive without a first-round pick. If they traded all those first-round picks away and they're not able to hit on free agents or they're not able to hit on their draft classes in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th round, then they would be an absolute mess. It doesn't matter how good of a coach Sean McVay is. It's so important to have a good scouting department, to trust the process, to understand what you're doing in free agency. And they really do that in the Rams. Not to mention, their owner also is okay with spending a lot of money. He spends money. They use up their payroll like no other. And they're okay with that. Now, it also helps that they have 2 of the best defensive players in the game, and one that could go down as the greatest defender in the history of the NFL. And I don't even think that's hyperbole. Aaron Donald is that special. He's on a whole nother level. It's absurd. It's amazing what he does. So when you have a guy like him, when you have a guy like Aaron Donald, you can bring in other players and it helps them out. Why? Because Aaron Donald takes so much attention that you can bring in other guys to play in across that defensive line, and it will give them more space than they're ever used to having, right? So think about it. For example, Leonard Floyd. Leonard Floyd was a first-round draft pick, a top 10 draft pick out of Georgia by the Chicago Bears, right? Top 10 draft pick out of Georgia. He plays for Chicago for 4 years. In the first year, in 2016, his rookie year, he had 7 sacks and 32 total tackles, right? It looked like he was on his way to becoming a great player. Then in 2017, he drops down to 4 sacks, 4.5. Then in 2018, drops down to 4. Then in 2019, drops down to 3. And he slowly starts to decline. Well, the Bears decide, okay, 4 years, we've seen enough. We're going to let him go. The Rams go and add him on a 1-year deal. And this year, he has the best year he's ever had in the NFL. He goes for 10.5 sacks, so 3.5 more than he's ever had in a season. He goes for 50 total tackles, 26 solo tackles. I mean, he played out of his mind. Why? 1, he clearly worked on his craft. He got better. And 2, the attention was taken away from him and put on Aaron Donald, which opened up space for him. That is not something to be overlooked. For example, Dante Fowler Jr., a guy that my Atlanta Falcons signed last offseason, right? And if you look at Dante Fowler Jr., this really explains my point right here. He was drafted by the Jacksonville Jaguars as a top 3 overall pick in 2016. First year, he has 4 sacks. Then in 2017, he has 8 sacks, so it looks like he's getting better. And then in 2018, halfway through the season, he gets traded to the Rams because things just aren't working out in Jacksonville. He's getting in fights. He wasn't playing up to his standards. He gets traded to the Rams. He has 4 sacks in I think it was like 10 games with the Rams. He comes back in 2019, and he goes for a career high 11.5 sacks and 54 tackles in 2019. All right, so this guy in Jacksonville who almost looked like a bust, he goes to Los Angeles and he goes for 11.5 sacks and 54 tackles. He then becomes a free agent the next year. The Atlanta Falcons sign him on a big 3-year deal. And this year, in 14 games, he gave us 3 sacks and 23 total tackles. 23. So those 11.5 sacks dropped down to 3, and those 54 total tackles dropped down to 23. Now, to his defense, he was very banged up, so he played injured a lot, but that's the Aaron Donald effect. You can bring in guys that maybe haven't had the best career, but they have pure talent. Like these guys, Leonard Floyd, Dante Fowler, these are talented players. They just need a little attention off of them. Put that attention onto Aaron Donald, a guy who can sure as hell handle that attention. Boom, they have career years. That's what the Rams are able to do when you have a guy like Aaron Donald, which allows them to make this type of risky move. Now, what does this move mean for the Rams moving forward? And who gets all the pressure? There's no more excuses. The finger gets pointed in one direction and one direction only from here on out. Who is that? Stay tuned. We're going to break that down right after this break. And then I'm going to give you guys my 10 best players on Sunday in the Super Bowl. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to the GSMC Football Podcast.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back. You are listening to the GSMC Football Podcast. I am your host, as always, Kayvon Izami. Thank you guys for making us a little bit a part of your day. As always, you can find us, listen to us wherever platform that you have, wherever you are, however you're listening, and whenever you're listening. We really do appreciate it. So, there's a lot to get into as we get to Super Bowl Sunday here, a big Sunday, a Sunday that we need to take a second, and I know I've said this many times, but it needs to be stressed. We need to really sit back and congratulate the NFL, the players, the staff, the coaches, everyone who has sacrificed and put the time and effort into making this season work. Remember, this has happened during the middle of a pandemic. It is very hard to play an entire 16 game schedule and not have any games canceled. No players got really sick. It all worked out really well. And that was because of the sacrifices that all of these players and the staffs and the teams made. So we have to appreciate that as fans, because we wouldn't have got this season if it wasn't for them making that sacrifice. So that's awesome. And I love how the NFL is kind of paying it forward by inviting these frontline workers, these healthcare workers, to the game. And I think they're inviting 1,700 or 2,000 healthcare frontline workers to the Super Bowl, which is awesome. That's the NFL is so good about really putting their money into giving back, which is great. So I love that. And it just, the NFL deserves a congratulations. because they've made it this far, and hopefully everything goes well. We had that one scare during the week which is crazy. I can't even imagine what would have happened, but the Kansas City Chiefs, supposedly their entire team uses this one barber, and the center, their backup center, was getting a haircut by this barber, and he tested positive during the haircut. I guess he took like a rapid test, and it came back mid-haircut. The guy posted a picture, and half of his hair was cut, and the other half wasn't, because they had to stop the cut right there. But the big part about that is Patrick Mahomes was actually in line to get a haircut from this same guy. So if that test didn't come back in time, or they didn't test him and they were irresponsible or something like that, that would have been a disaster. Luckily, that didn't happen, but that was the one scare. Every time I got an Adam Schefter tweet or heard from Ian Rappaport or something, I was like, please don't let it be about COVID. Please don't let it be about COVID. But it looks like, we're going to make it to Sunday. There's not going to be any issues, and that's big time for us football fans and for the game on Sunday. So that's great. So there's so much to dive into when it comes to this game. And we're going to lay it all out. And we're going to do it for you guys in particular towards the end of this segment and segment number 3 and 4. Because I kind of want to end the show talking about the matchups, giving you guys my pick, laying out some Super Bowl bet props. I don't know if you guys saw this, but there was a reporter, a local Florida reporter, who was actually outside of the stadium when the national anthem was being practiced. And he held up his phone and he recorded the practicing of the national anthem, and he tweeted it out. And he said, "For all you gamblers." And the anthem went, for practice, it went 2 minutes and 16 seconds, which would be over the betting that you can bet on the anthem. I think that it's 120 seconds or something like that. I might be wrong. I have to double check that, but I think it's right below like 2 minutes and 10 seconds. So now obviously that was practice. Please, all you guys, don't run out there and bet your life savings on that. Go look up the Twitter. You can see the video and everything like that. It's a big story. But there's no doubt that this is a game where a lot of people bet, and I'll be betting. I know a lot of you guys will be. I'm not trying to be your dad, but just be smart, be sensible. Don't bet anything you don't have. Make it fun, Don't stress out. It's the Super Bowl where you're stressing out $100,000 or $10,000 or even $1,000. Make it fun. You're relaxed. You're having fun with your friends and family. You're being smart, social distance, all that stuff. And you're betting a little wager here and there to make the game exciting if you're not a Chiefs or Bucs fan. If you're a Chief or Buc fan, you don't need to bet on the game because you are already having a blast that your team is there. You're stressing out. Trust me, I know how that is. When my Falcons were in it, I probably had the biggest roller coaster of emotions that anyone's ever had in the Super Bowl. I went from crying of happiness, jumping on my friend, to literally pouting like a 2-year-old and crying in sadness in the matter of an hour. So I get it. I see how it is. Enjoy it. Be sensible. Be smart. So what we're going to get into before I make the picks is I want to dive back into this Matthew Stafford trade with the Rams. And again, there's so much more to happen this offseason. Think about it. Carson Wentz, is he going to get traded? It looks like he might get traded as early as next week, ladies and gentlemen. We really thought that the Carson Wentz saga of wanting out in Philly would be over because they did what Carson Wentz wanted to do. At least that's what we thought, right? They fired their coach. They fired Doug Peterson, and they brought in someone from the Colts organization, Nick Sirianni, who worked under Frank Reich, the guy who Carson Wentz had his best season under when Frank Reich was the offensive coordinator of the Indianapolis Colts. So we all thought, okay, Wentz is going to want to stay now. But what we're hearing is that's not the case. He is upset that he got benched, and he wants out. Now, I'm a little conflicted on this because all of you guys that have followed me and followed this show, and I appreciate that you guys have for this long throughout the entire season. We've made it, and I thank you guys. If you told me, 55 episodes ago that I would have been able to get to episode 55 without saying something stupid, I'd be pretty shocked. And we've made it. So I appreciate you guys for that. But if you've been following me, you know that I'm a big Carson Wentz believer. I believe he's got game. I believe he's got talent. And I believe he is a winning quarterback in the NFL. I think that he had a rough year last year. And I think you can point to more positives in Wentz's games than negatives. And because of that, I believe he can rebound. It's very rare do you see a player go from bad. And Wentz wasn't bad to start off. He was a rookie. He had a decent rookie season. Then he got better. He went MVP caliber, and then he dropped down. It's very rare for you to see someone go from MVP to bad, right? We usually see the incline up, and then they stay up there. So, or we see that they start out bad and then they get good. So it's very rare to see that unless an injury happens or they just get old. So that's why I still believe Wentz still has it. Now, where I'm conflicted is I don't like what Wentz is doing right now. I think he's being a baby. I think he's being soft. And I know that sounds harsh, but it is. It's how I feel because the organization did what you wanted them to do. They did the opposite of what the Los Angeles Rams did. The Los Angeles Rams said, we're sticking with our coach and we're getting rid of our quarterback because we believe the quarterback's the problem, not the coach. The Philadelphia Eagles did the complete opposite. They said, no. We believe our quarterback should stay. We believe our Super Bowl winning head coach should go. So they stuck with the quarterback and they got rid of the coach. So they did that for Carson Wentz. And now after they do that, after they hire a guy coming from under Frank Wright's, top side, he was Frank Wright's guy. He was his offensive coordinator. They did that for Wentz, and now Wentz still wants out? Why? Why, Wentz? Why don't you stay and battle it out with Jalen Hurts and show everyone that, you know what? It was Doug Peterson's fault. It wasn't your fault. You still have game. Doug Peterson just didn't use you the right way. Why would you not show that? Now, look, I get it. See, there are some times where people just need a change of scenery. And the Eagles have royally screwed this whole situation up. They did it right away by putting up a statue of Nick Foles a couple of months after he won the Super Bowl. Ladies and gentlemen, you don't put a statue up within the first year of winning a big championship. You do that years down the road. You do that after the players retired. I've never heard of a team put a statue up of a player who is a backup his entire career. He had one hot run with the team, and they still put a statue up even though he is not their future. So imagine this. Every single day, Carson Wentz has to walk into work and see the guy who won the Super Bowl because he was injured. So I get why sometimes really people, they just need a change of scenery. And you know what? Wentz going to a new team, I think could help him tremendously. So that's why I understand that part of it, but I still don't like what he's doing. Because to me, he's pretty much saying, yeah, I see that you guys did this for me. You got rid of the coach, but you benched me. And I'm still upset with that, and I want out. And to me, that's a bad sign. Because the Eagles didn't bench him. Doug Peterson benched him. They got rid of the guy that benched you. They brought in someone that they think can work well with you. Stick it out and see what happens. I get it. You want to get out because of everything that's happened. But sometimes you got to at least give it another year in this new situation. If it doesn't work out then you can demand your way out. So I think that he's pulling the gun too quickly. I think that he is not being fair to the Eagles. And he's going to end up getting what he wants because they're not going to stick around with a guy that's unhappy And especially if they can get a couple first-round picks for him, which I think they can. Right now, the Chicago Bears and the Indianapolis Colts are the two teams that are in the front runners to get him, according to Adam Schefter. So when you look at it between those two teams, I'm obviously going to take the Colts as my favorite destination for Wentz. Again, I don't want Wentz to get out. I want him to try it with Nick Sirianni. I want him to try it with a new coach and see what happens. But if he ends up getting out, I think the Colts are the best situation. And I'm telling you this right now, if the Colts land Carson Wentz, they are going to win the AFC South next year, and they should be a true contender to challenge the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. Now, I don't know if they'll be able to beat the Chiefs, but I believe the Colts should 100% go after Carson Wentz for a couple of reasons. One, they are set in terms of their roster. They have dynamic players on both sides of the ball that are very young. They can add another receiver or two, definitely, because T.Y. Hilton's getting older, and they might need to add a little bit more depth on the offensive line. But overall, they've got a superstar running back. They've got a superstar linebacker in Darius Leonard. They've got a good secondary, definitely an up and young coming secondary. They've got a great offensive line, and they've got a great head coach. And a head coach, and again, Frank Wright, who is very familiar with Carson Wentz. If I am the Colts, I'm giving 2 first-round picks right now to get Carson Wentz. I'm all in for the Colts. Now, if the Colts don't do it, I'm all in on the Bears doing as well, because the Bears, now their roster is not as good as the Colts. The Colts have one of the best rosters top to bottom in the league. The Bears aren't there yet. But what the Bears do have is they've got a good defense. They've got good core players. They've got a good running back, but their offensive line is not very good. And that's the one thing that worries me about the Bears. The Eagles, when their offensive line started to go down, Carson Wentz felt like he had to be Superman. And when Carson Wentz feels like he has to be Superman, he starts making some really dumb plays. That's the one thing that worries me. But overall, I like Matt Nagy. I think he can do a great job with Carson Wentz. I think that they would need to re-sign Allen Robinson because they don't have great weapons. But I do like those two situations. But the Colts are far and above the best situation for them to get Wentz and for Wentz to go there. So that's going to be one interesting thing that I'm going to be watching. And again, Adam Schefter reported this could happen as early as next week. So we could get done with the Super Bowl, and come Monday or Tuesday, we're getting breaking news that Carson Wentz is being traded. So we'll have to watch out for that. Then the question becomes, what about Deshaun Watson? All right. So after that, we'll have Matthew Stafford on the move to LA. We'll have Carson Wentz on the move to Indy, Chicago, or maybe a surprise team. And then the biggest domino, the biggest fish in the sea would still be left hanging. And the question becomes, though, will it happen after that? Because after Carson Wentz gets traded, the Houston Texans and the entire NFL will have a great idea of what it's going to take to get Deshaun Watson. Because remember, it's going to take more than what you paid for Matt Stafford. It's going to take more than what you paid for Carson Wentz, because Deshaun Watson is not only better than both of them, he's younger than both of them. He's on a great contract. He's a franchise quarterback. He's a buttoned up, really smart, good guy, a guy that's going to help your community out, a guy that's not fake. He wears his heart on his sleeves. He shows you who he is. He's a real good dude, right? Dabo Swinney called him Michael Jordan, and he has played like it his first couple of years in the NFL. He's a true superstar. So we're going to get a good idea. Okay, you gave up 2 first-round picks for Matt Stafford. That's a little different because they had to unload that Jared Goff contract. So they were going to have to pay no matter what. Then you give up, let's say 2 first-round picks for Carson Wentz as well. Okay, so then the Houston Texans are going to say, well, you got 2 for Matt Stafford, you got 2 for Carson Wentz, we want 4, maybe even 5. Will the New York Jets make that deal? Will the Carolina Panthers make that deal? I think that the Carolina Panthers are the sneaky team that everyone needs to be watching. Because their owner is aggressive. Their owner, if he wants something, he goes after it and gets it. He's a Wall Street kind of guy. He's made his money off of Wall Street. Matt Rule, when he signed Matt Rule as his head coach last offseason, he saw that the New York Giants wanted him. He said, no, I'm going to pay you the most ever by an NFL coach in the history of the league. It upset a lot of owners, remember? They're saying this guy just becomes an owner and he's offering a college coach this amount of money. What is he doing? He didn't care. He said, this is my money. This is my team. I'm going to do with what I want to do with it. And he went and paid a boatload of money to bring in Carson Wentz because the Giants were interested in him as well. So he is the kind of guy that he will say, I want Deshaun Watson. Let's pay the house for him. Let's unload and get him. Could it happen? Or could a team like the Jets or Dolphins step in the way? Because, remember, the Jets and Dolphins have more appealing assets, right? Because the Jets have the number 2 overall pick and the Dolphins have the number 3 overall pick. So from the Houston organization's perspective, they're going to look at this and they're going to say, we would rather have a pick where we can get a top 4, top 3 player in this year's draft. So that will be the big thing right there. Now, again, right now the Houston Texans are reporting they don't want to trade Watson. I believe that's going to have to change because I don't think Watson's changing his mind. He wants out. Now, do they play a little game of chicken and try and make him bluff, see if he'll really go to the point of sitting out? That's time will tell on that. But I do believe Deshaun Watson will go as far as he has to get out of Houston. I think he's fed up with them, and I think he's made up his mind that he wants out, and I don't see him changing his mind anytime soon. So that's why this Carson Wentz trade is such a big deal. We've seen what happened with Matt Stafford, but that's a bit of an anomaly because the Rams had to unload that massive Jared Goff contract. So no matter what, it was going to take a little bit more to get a team to take on that contract. So it's different. Now, I think it will take at least one first-round pick for Carson Wentz, and then we'll decide, okay, how many first rounds is it going to be for Deshaun Watson? Because the question isn't, is it a first-round pick? It's how many. Is it 3? Is it 4? Is it 5? He's that good. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. We are done with segment number 2. Take a quick break, come right back, go into segment number 3, finish off my last point with what we're going to talk about with, again, the pressure is on one person in LA now. Who is that? Why is there so much pressure on them? And then it's all Super Bowl talk from here. We're coming right back after this break.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back. This is the GSMC Football Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Go check out the great GSMC Podcast Network, all different types of topics on any platform that you can find. It's a lot of great stuff. And as always, come back here and join us for the GSMC Football Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon Izami. It is Super Bowl week. We are almost here on the big Super Bowl Sunday. Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are the first team ever to be a host of the Super Bowl. It's just crazy. Tom Brady goes to Tampa Bay in an off-season where there is no off-season, right? There is no preseason. There is no training camp. He doesn't get time to get a nice rapport with his teammates. He has to sneak off to high school fields, and without people knowing, he's walking into random people's house thinking that it's his offensive coordinator. He's barely had time to, get to know the city of Tampa and his teammates, and he's already got them in the Super Bowl. It's remarkable. It's the testament to how much work he puts in. It's the testament to how much he loves this game and how great of a football player he is. The greatest football player we've ever seen. And if he can win on Sunday against that machine, Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, I honestly think that will be his most accomplished Super Bowl ever. He has 6 with the Patriots, but there's always going to be that, you had Bill Belichick, right? I mean, think about it. 3 of them, or the first 2, he was young and the defense really helped him out. He made some big plays, no doubt about it. Then that one against the Falcons was probably his greatest because he really led that comeback. It didn't have as much to do with Bill Belichick. The one against the Rams, it was a defensive game. He didn't even throw for 200 yards. Edelman won the MVP, not him. So that has a lot to do with Belichick there. And the one against Seattle, Malcolm Butler came up with one of the most phenomenal plays in Super Bowl history where he made that interception at the 1-yard line. So then he goes down to Tampa. This is his show. He's taking a coach in Bruce Arians who's never made the Super Bowl before as a head coach. He's been there as an offensive coordinator. He's never been there as a head coach. He's taken on a team that really, other than a couple of guys like Jason Pierre-Paul, they've never been to the Super Bowl before. It's a very young team in terms of lots of playoff experience, right? So you look at it, and he's doing this at the age of 42 years old. He's showing everyone how it's done. He didn't have a full off season. I think this is one of the most remarkable seasons of Tom Brady's illustrious career, and if he wins it will be, to me, the most accomplished Super Bowl on his behalf. And that would be really remarkable because of the team, because of all the circumstances, because Bill Belichick isn't there, and because of the team that he will have beaten, which is the Kansas City Chiefs, who, in my opinion, one of the greatest offensive teams we've ever seen. A guy in Patrick Mahomes who has literally not lost a game by more than one possession in the NFL since he's been in the league, right? He hasn't lost a game by more than 8 points. How is that possible? He's never been blown out in a game. He only has one playoff loss, and that's to Tom Brady in overtime in his first year ever as a starter in the AFC Championship game. In a game where he never even got to touch the ball because of the stupid overtime rules. So this matchup is one for the ages. There's storylines on every single angle and turn that you look at. And it's really going to be one of those games where you just got to sit back and relax. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show because it is going to be a special performance. And I'm going to give you guys my picks in just a little bit. I'm going to give you guys my top 10 players. You guys know how I love to carry around my notebook and I make little remarks and, little thoughts of what I want to talk about all throughout the week on the show. Well, I did that for this game of the top 10 players in this game. All right. And I'm going to give it to you guys and to give you guys an idea how even this matchup really is. A lot of people think this is all about the Chiefs. This matchup is very, very even, and I'm going to kind of point that out to you in just a minute. But real quick, I want to just close off this Matthew Stafford trade discussion by saying this, okay? And you know, a lot of people are talking about his age, right? He's 32 years old. These quarterbacks, to me, that doesn't matter. These quarterbacks nowadays are playing. Look at Brady. And again, I know Brady's an anomaly, but Rodgers, 36. He's going to win the MVP this year. Matthew Stafford is a tough guy. And you know, one of the things that I love about Matthew Stafford so much, Week 17 this past season, the Lions were one of the worst teams in the NFL. They were terrible. And Week 17, he's playing the last game of the year, an absolutely meaningless football game. He has 3 different injuries. He's all week he's on the injury report with 3 different injuries. And in an absolute meaningless game, he goes out there and plays the entire game and fights all the way till the end. Why? Because that's who Matthew Stafford is. Matthew Stafford has always been known for his toughness and his love of the football game. And I love Matthew Stafford. He's a football player through thick and thin. And he's out there fighting like crazy for his team. I'm a huge Matthew Stafford fan, and I think they're set up for enormous success in LA. But with that being said, that doesn't mean that this move does not come with significant risk. The Los Angeles Rams have now put themselves in a zero margin for error category. Right? You're going to have to be able to hit on players later in the draft, which, by the way, the Rams have done very well over the last couple years. See, that's the one thing I keep pointing out to people. It's not like they just, they just now don't have first-round picks. No. They've been without first-round picks since 2016, and they have still been able to be successful, making the playoffs every single year but one, and that one year they didn't make it, they went 9-7, winning record. So that will continue as long as they keep doing what they've been doing. Now, they lost their director of scouting, Brad Holmes. He is now the general manager in Detroit. How much did he have to do with picking some of those players? We're going to find out. But it leaves them with a very small window and with zero margin for error. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But with all that being said, I sat here all year and I criticized the Packers, right? I criticized the Packers over and over for not going all in for it, right? For not giving it everything they had to win a Super Bowl this year with Aaron Rodgers. Instead, they go out and they draft for the future. Instead, they go out and draft a guy like Jordan Love, who is a project at quarterback. Instead, they don't trade for a big-time receiver. Well, the Rams are going all in. So I can't sit here and be a hypocrite and criticize the Packers and not criticize the Rams. So I applaud what the Rams are doing. The Rams are saying, we've got a stud roster. We know we have a small window to win because it's the National Football League. It's very rare to have a dynasty. So let's go all in and try and win ourselves a championship. They have the best defensive player in the National Football League in Aaron Donald, a generational talent, a transcendent star. They have Jalen Ramsey, who is a good cover cornerback, one of the best, right? Arguably the best cornerback in the entire game right now. They have great weapons on offense. They have a very good offensive line. They run the ball with Cam Akers well, who, by the way, they drafted in the second round. Another, example of how they're finding these guys without first-round picks. They have 2 different tight ends that they can roll out. They've got Cooper Kupp. They've got Robert Woods. And now they have a quarterback who is a difference maker. And that is the key. That's the cherry on top. That's what puts the dessert together. And you're going to finally see what Matthew Stafford can do. All these years in Detroit, he kind of just got swept under the rug. So now we get to see it. But, as I told you guys, Jared Goff is 16 months removed from signing the largest guaranteed contract in NFL history. He took a team 2 years ago that had the 20th ranked defense to the Super Bowl. The Rams were the number 1 scoring offense in the NFL. And the 2 seasons, 17 and 18 with Goff as their quarterback, he had a passer rating over 100 in both seasons. Number 1 offense in those years, 17 and 18, not a great defense, and he still led them to the Super Bowl. He still had a passer rating over 100 in both years. So the question becomes, and I pose this question for all of you out there, what happened? Why did he dip? Why did his play go down? And this is very, very important. So listen up, because the answer to that question, if you're in Los Angeles, if you're a Rams fan, it better be Goff is the issue and not Sean McVay. It better be Goff and not Sean McVay, because what they have done now is they've gone all in on Sean McVay, who is known as the boy genius, the boy wonder, right? He is the young superstar head coach that took Jared Goff from being a bust-looking lost his rookie year under Jeff Fisher to becoming all the things that I just named you. A Super Bowl starting quarterback and the largest guaranteed contract in NFL history. So Sean McVay gets a lot of credit. He gets a lot of credit, right? You know, if you're in the NFL and you've had a cup of coffee with Sean McVay, you're getting a head coaching job, it feels like. Because everyone wants to, it's a copycat league. They say that for a reason. Everyone wants to follow what the Rams have done. So, however, when you have an NFL coach where, again, if you've had a cup of coffee with McVay, you're getting a head coaching job. But 16 months after giving Goff that contract, this franchise felt the only way they could win was to trade him away and to pay someone 2 first-round picks and a third to take him off your hands. That is at least some degree of an indictment, right? So I think there is enormous pressure now on Sean McVay. I kept teasing you guys, who is the one person we have to watch now? And it is Sean McVay, because this organization just did what the Eagles did not do. The Eagles didn't back their coach and trade away their quarterback. No, they did the opposite. They knew there was a lot of questions going on with Carson Wentz, but instead they said, we're going to get rid of our Super Bowl winning head coach and we're going to stick with the quarterback. The Rams didn't do that. The Rams didn't back the quarterback. The Rams backed the coach. They went all in on McVay. They traded away their entire future to bring in Matt Stafford, which means all the attention is now on McVay. And if things go awry, the fingers get pointed at the genius from now on. I will say I think it does work. I think McVay is a genius. I think he should be labeled the boy wonder for a reason. You know, he is a great coach. And I think he has proved it, and I think he will continue to prove it. And Stafford is a terrific player, and I really do think that they will win big. But I do think that means still that the pressure is on him, and it's all on Sean McVay. They're backing Sean McVay with their money. They're backing him with their future. They're going all in on Sean McVay, making Matthew Stafford a Super Bowl caliber quarterback. And in a violent sport like the NFL, that is very risky to do. But they believe in their guy, they believe in their process, and we're going to see what happens. We are going to see what happens, and I can't wait to watch it. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I am Kayvon Izami. We appreciate you guys tuning in. It's going to be one heck of an off season. There's no doubt about that. And it's crazy because we still have one game left, Super Bowl Sunday. But when you see it's going to be an offseason that we've never seen before when it comes to what we're seeing with quarterbacks moving. Usually it's a great free agent sport, where big name players get traded or they sign in other places, but it's never quarterbacks, right? And this offseason, we could see 3, 4, 5 different quarterbacks get traded. Lots of picks get traded, and it's going to be one to really, really follow. Now, with all that being said, we still have a game to play. We still have Super Bowl Sunday right around the corner. So, usually, when I look at these big-time games, whether it's big playoff games or whether it's the Super Bowl itself, I like to take notes of different parts of the game before I actually make a prediction, right? So I like to gather all the info because usually in a Super Bowl, we all think the two teams that are there, they're the two best teams, right? You can get lucky some years and get hot, but you're there because you either got really hot and you're a good enough football team that you can win it all, or you're just downright the best team and you've been the best team all year long. So to get to the Super Bowl, it's not like the NBA where if you have a LeBron James or, a Michael Jordan, you can get to the finals just because you have those type of guys. Now, the NFL, you got to have a legit team around you to get there. So when I come up with my picks, it's tough, right? If it was easy, I'd be a millionaire because I'd always win my bets and we'd be good to go. I think you all would. So it's tough to pick these games. So you have to really look at it because I think the first inclination is everyone sees Brady and they want to bet Brady. But then the second inclination is everyone sees what the heck Patrick Mahomes has been doing, which is just, unheard of. It's unseen. We've never seen the things he's done at such a young age. It makes you say, well, this Chiefs offense is so hard to stop, so maybe we should pick the Chiefs, right? It really does kind of feel like that toss-up game. But first, when I first found out that the Bucs and the Chiefs were going to be playing each other, I immediately wrote down what I thought the spread would be. And I wrote Chiefs -5. I thought that the Chiefs would be favored by 4.5, 5.5 points. Well, they're only favored by 3. Some places 3.5. So that tells me that this game is even more even than I first thought in my head. So then I had to take a step back and say, okay, why was I favoring the Chiefs so much? Is it because of that offense? Is it because of Andy Reid? I mean, I think that Andy Reid is a huge coaching advantage over Bruce Arians. Bruce Arians is a great coach. I love him. I love what he's doing for the game, what he has done for the game, but Andy Reid is a better coach. It's just that simple. So was I favoring Andy Reid too much? Or was I just not giving Tom Brady enough credit? So I had to go back and figure out where I'm going there. So then I decided to say, okay, let me write down the 10 best players in this game, 1 to 10. And usually when I do that, if you get like a 7 of the 10 players are on this team and there's only 3 on that team, you usually say, okay, so this team is clearly better, right? The team that has the 7 players, they're clearly better. So I did that this year to see if I could get a clear outcome of what I feel like is the more dominant team. And it was very interesting how it came out. So what I'm going to do is we're going to take a quick break. We're going to open up segment number 4, giving you guys my 10 best players, 1 to 10, in the Super Bowl playing on Sunday. And then we're going to give you guys my pick. We're going to wrap out the show with a couple of fun prop bets, all right? All of this coming up, 1 segment left before we hit the Super Bowl. Stick with us here. It's going to be a fun one as we finish out the stretch. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. Thank you for listening.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
You are listening to the GSMC Football Podcast. Welcome to segment number 4, quarter number 4, the last segment we will do before Super Bowl Sunday happens. And then the next time we're talking with you guys, it will be after the Super Bowl. We'll be talking about who raised the trophy, who's going to Disney World, and is it a dynasty in the making, or has a dynasty already happened, I should say, because if the Kansas City Chiefs win, and they go back-to-back, the first team ever to go back-to-back since Tom Brady and the Patriots did it back in 02-03, then they already are a dynasty. But we could be saying Tom Brady, seven NFL rings. Is that possible? He will never be able to be caught by anyone in the GOAT conversation. That's the one thing you guys all heard probably. So Tony Romo, who will be calling the game on Sunday with Jim Nantz. Look, if you guys take a couple minutes on Sunday to just listen to Tony Romo, the guy breaks down the game better than anyone I've ever heard. I mean, a lot of people think he's annoying. They say this and that about him. He talks too much. I love him. I don't get the hate about him. He breaks down the game so well. If you have some time, which you will because you'll be watching the game, just focus for a couple minutes on Tony Romo and what he's saying, and I promise you that you will learn something. You will learn something. He is a great announcer. I mean, top of the line announcer. So I can't wait to listen to him and Jim Nantz and CBS call that game. It's going to be a fantastic showing on their part, and it's going to be a fun Super Bowl. It's going to be an interesting Super Bowl. One of the things I really can't wait to check out is what happens, how does the stadium look? Is it going to look full, or is it actually going to look kind of socially distanced? Because that's going to be a big topic, a big topic. It's going to be heavily criticized if that stadium is completely packed. And, the NFL is going to want to try and get as many people as they can in that stadium, but it obviously can't be full because of COVID. So that's going to be a really interesting thing that I'm going to be looking at. Just some stuff outside of the actual game. The Weeknd is doing the halftime show. I think a lot of people believe he'll do a good job. He's got some great hits, but my one piece of advice, and not like I'm a halftime expert, but from all the Super Bowls that I've watched, the people that come out and do the songs that people want them to do, the famous songs, they don't try and change things up and drop some new hit single that no one's ever heard. You do the songs that made you famous. So the Weeknd needs to come out there and he needs to do the songs that are stuck in everyone's head that we've been hearing all week long, the last 2 weeks. Those are the type of songs that he needs to do. And I'll be interested to see who else makes an appearance on that halftime during the Super Bowl halftime show. But I think the Weeknd should do a good job. And one thing, so back to Tony Romo real quick, during this week of all the, media talk and everything, Tony Romo said something really interesting. He said, this is going to be Patrick Mahomes' biggest game, most important game, most impactful game. Why? Because if he doesn't win this game, then Brady will have 7 rings, and one of those rings will be over him, Patrick Mahomes, which means he'll never be able to catch him in the GOAT conversation. That is essentially, I paraphrased a little bit, but that is essentially what Tony Romo said, right? That if Tom Brady wins this, he will never be caught. Patrick Mahomes will never be able to catch him. I fully agree with that. I think it's a great remark and a great comment by Tony Romo. Because think about it. If Patrick Mahomes wins this game, he gets back-to-back rings, and at age 25, he will already have a regular season MVP, a Super Bowl MVP, most likely 2 Super Bowl MVPs, because in all honesty, whoever wins this game, I would be absolutely shocked if Brady or Mahomes doesn't win the MVP. With the quarterback of the winning team is going to win the MVP unless somehow it becomes a just shootout, a defensive type game, and it's like a 17-10 and some defensive player scores a touchdown and a couple sacks, which with these two offenses and these two type of head coaches, we're not going to see that happen. So if Mahomes and the Chiefs win, he'll have a regular season MVP, he'll have 2 Super Bowl rings back to back, and this is the key. One of those wins, one of those Super Bowl rings will be over Tom Brady, right? It will be against Tom Brady. So that right there will make him, he'll have 2. 2 is much closer to 6, then 1 is closer to 7. He'll have a legit shot at maybe one day passing Tom Brady or getting to Tom Brady in the conversation of GOAT. Now, right now, he is nowhere near. All this stuff about, Mahomes is he's already the GOAT or he can really reach Tom Brady as the GOAT. No, he is nowhere close to Brady. Even if he wins this game, he is nowhere near Brady. Really, even if he wins this game, he is nowhere near Brady. What Brady has done in his career, and then this year alone, it's cemented him as the GOAT, and no one's even near him. But how it happens if Mahomes wins is it keeps the conversation alive. It means it's still a possibility. If Mahomes loses, the conversation should never happen again, ever again, because it doesn't have a chance. Because he's not getting to 7 rings, and even if he does get to 7 rings, there will still always be, you lost to Tom Brady, and not Tom Brady at 25, not Tom Brady at 35. No, you lost to Tom Brady in his 40s. So that will be a conversation that will be over. But if Mahomes is able to go and beat Tom Brady and say, I have an actual Super Bowl win over you, and I'm only 25 years old, and that's my second Super Bowl win, and it was at your home stadium, the conversation is able to stay alive. Again, the conversation won't be able to actually be out there over and over discussed and debated day in and day out, but because he still has a long way to go, Mahomes, but it's something that can still stay there. It can sizzle, let it stay on the frying pan for a little bit, let it cook, simmer for a long, long time. Come back and check on it 4 years from now. Let's see what we have, right? Let's see what we have. So that comment by Tony Romo I found was outstanding. And it just is another key headline to this game. Because when you look at it, a guy like Patrick Mahomes, we've never seen. We've seen guys like Dan Marino, who just one of the most talented quarterbacks ever. John Elway with a strong arm, talent, dual baseball player, QB, stud. And then we've seen Mahomes, who is all of that, right? He has the pure talent, but he actually has the wins too. See, Elway, he didn't win till the end of his career. You remember, he went out on top. He won 2 Super Bowls and left the game, but he didn't win. He lost a lot of Super Bowls, but he didn't win until the end. Dan Marino, he only got to the Super Bowl once. He lost. He never made it back. So the difference between Mahomes and all these other guys is Mahomes has the talent. He's actually winning. And that's why he will be the closest thing to Brady if he's able to keep this career up. But there's so much more that goes into it. He's got to stay healthy. What happens with Andy Reid and the Chiefs over many years? Andy Reid's getting older. So all that has to happen. But I love the point that Tony Romo made. It's a really, really interesting one. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I want to get into this with you guys as we come down the final stretch of the show here, and that is the 10 best players in this game, okay? I put it in order here, so let's start with right away, and it's number one, it's Patrick Mahomes, the guy we were just talking about. Let's not argue about this one, all right? The last 26 games, he's had 2,560 touchdowns, 12 picks in that time. That's it. He has a winning percentage of 83, better than any quarterback in the Super Bowl era. He would be the best player in this game, and it's not even close, right? Not even close. That's not even a debate. Number two, Tom Brady. Again, stop the nonsense. You didn't think he was going to be here. Okay, well, guess what? He's here. Since week 14, he's been on fire. Passer rating of 111. So Tom Brady, he learned the system. He finally got comfortable. And as most of us predicted, once he got comfortable, once that offensive line started to play well, boom, he dominated. So Brady is the second best player in this game. There's no doubt about it. The third best player in the game, Travis Kelce. I think he's the best tight end in the league, and I think he potentially can be the next best tight end in the league for the next 5 or 6 years. We've seen him dominate in receiving yards, lead the league in receiving yards, not just but for tight ends, but wide receivers. What he does in the passing game it's unprecedented. We don't see tight ends do it the way he's done it. In the playoffs this year when he's been targeted by Mahomes has a passer rating of 144. I think he is the toughest matchup in the NFL. There's guys out there that are faster. There's guys that are bigger, but I don't think there's a linebacker out there that can cover Travis Kelce. I don't think there's a safety out there that can bring him down. I don't think there's a corner out there that can stop Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce is the unstoppable weapon, and he is the third best player in this game. Number 4, Tyreek Hill, the Cheetah, Mr. Cheetah, fastest player in the league. You have to bracket him. Last time, the Tampa Bay Bucks tried to play him one-on-one on an island, and he smoked him for the game of their life. They will learn from that, and they will change the way. That is one of the biggest things I will be watching, guys. How do they play Tyreek Hill? How does Todd Bowles use the film and the mistakes they made last game and implement that into what they're going to do with Tyreek Hill this game? I cannot wait to watch that. He is so hard to guard. He's by far the most dangerous weapon because of his speed, and he is going to be an X factor in this game. He makes corners look slow. He makes everyone look slow. He is the fourth best player. Number 5, Mike Evans. I told you guys going into the season, Brady is going to love having a target like Mike Evans. He's big, he's fast, and him and Brady have a great connection. He's a fantastic player. He's the only player in NFL history to have 1,000+ yards receiving in his first 7 seasons. Only player. Out of all those good players that have come, only player. He came out of Texas A&M. Again, he's big, he's strong. He makes defenders frustrating. He is an amazing red zone target. One of the best red zone targets in the league. Brady throws it up to him, he catches it. It's going to take a lot to guard him because he's like an NBA player almost. He's super tall. Really fun player to watch. He is my 5th best player in the game. When it comes to number 6, love this guy. Maybe the most instinctive player in the game, the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu. I put him in here, and I maybe should have had him higher, honestly. But the last 2 years, Tyrann Mathieu has completely changed this Chiefs defense. Remember, when Mahomes first took over, this defense was a problem. They were scoring, they were giving up almost as much as they scored. Then Tyrann Mathieu, they signed Tyrann Mathieu, and everything changed. He is always around the ball like Ed Reed. He's one of those players that is a lifetime type player. He has the ability to just sniff out the ball, sniff out the play. If you watch footage of Kansas City's defense, he is all over the place. your eyes are following the honey badger. He'll move from the left side of the field to the right side of the field. He'll be able to kind of cover that entire area as he goes. I think he's incredibly valuable. And most of the stuff he does, he's not the fastest. He came out of LSU. He wasn't a number one corner. He's not really a safety. He's just a big enough linebacker. He's a great football player. He's not a big enough linebacker. He's just kind of that really instinctive football player who's super athletic, super smart, and he'll find a way to make an impact. And I guarantee you he will make a couple big plays on Sunday. Number 7, Devin White. Guys, Devin White is the modern-day linebacker to a T. He can do it all. He's fast. He's big. He can rush the passer. He can drop in coverage. He is a flat-out stud, and he has just dominated these playoffs. They would not be here. Brady's been great. The offense has been great. The pass rush by those big four up front, they've been great. But I promise you the Tampa Bay Buccaneers would not be here in this situation if it wasn't for Devin White and what he has done during these playoffs. He will be the best linebacker in the game for many years. Second year in the league out of LSU, went top 5, and I said right away, this guy is special. And he can do it all. And you know what? I cannot wait to watch if they put him on Travis Kelce. And if they do, how does he hold his own? Look, Kelce, it's not an indictment if he can't handle it, because Kelce, again, is just unguardable. But is he up for that task? That's something I can't wait to watch. Number 8, Chris Jones, a total disruptor for the Chiefs on the defensive front. Second most sacks by any defensive tackle in the last 3 years except Aaron Donald. He is very hard to singularly block. He's aggressive. He has a great personality. He's a trash talker. And he'll let you know about it on the field. He will let you know. They will struggle to block him. He will make some big-time plays in this. And if he has it his way, he will be all over Brady on Sunday. Someone to really, really watch. According to Pro Football Focus, he is the highest rated defensive player. I mean, he is a stud. Number 8 to me, Levante David, the other linebacker for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have some really good defensive players, and that's a big reason why they're here. He's a very instinctive linebacker. He's one of the highest linebackers in the game by Pro Football Focus. He's essentially a tackle machine. 20-plus sacks, 1,000 tackles, 100 tackles for loss since entering the league. The only player with those type of numbers. He will be another guy where you'll see his number called a lot, and you'll see him around the camera a lot because he will be around the ball all throughout the game. There is no doubt about that. Number 9, Shaquille Barrett. Shaquille Barrett, he's been with Tampa Bay for the last couple years. He has led the NFL in sacks the last 2 years with 31.3 sacks. He absolutely dominated that Packers O-line in the NFC Championship game. He was all over Aaron Rodgers. He made Aaron Rodgers uncomfortable. And if he does what he did to Aaron Rodgers, if he does that to Mahomes, then the Bucs really have a great chance to win this football game. Shaq Barrett is so important to this team. He's been a great signing by that front office of the Bucs, and I can't wait to see how he disrupts this porous offensive line by the Chiefs, because remember, they have a lot of injuries. That offensive line is not very good right now. There is weaknesses. How will Shaquille Barrett take advantage of it? And then my 10th player is Mecole Hardman. Now listen, I know a lot of you guys are saying, are you kidding me? How are you not going to put Jason Pierre-Paul or Chris Godwin or any of these? And look, I'm talking about the most impactful players here. Mecole's speed and the way Andy Reid can use him is so intriguing to me and so hard to block. And so hard to cover. He really is a secret weapon. He's like a Tyreek Hill, but not as good in terms of his route running and stuff like that. Just his speed. Remember, he is their punt returner. He is their kick returner. He will run back touchdowns. He will catch touchdowns. He will go around the wide receiver outs and wide receiver ins and come around and run for a 70-yard game. They'll do little screen passes with him. He is the true definition of a secret weapon, and while he's not better than all those guys like JPP and Chris Godwin and Antonio Brown and Ndamukong Suh, come on, those guys all should be in this list. But I'm talking about impactful players, and what that guy can do is special, and I promise you, he will have a big part of something in this game plan if the Chiefs are going to win this game. The Chiefs have to get him going in some time, whether it's either one big play or a couple plays. He will have to make a couple or one of those plays if the Chiefs want to win this game. So those are my top 10 players, the most impactful players as we enter Sunday. With a couple of minutes left here, I want to give you guys my prediction. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon Izami, and for who I have winning Super Bowl 55, I have the Kansas City Chiefs beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I have Kansas City scoring 35, and I have the Bucs scoring 28. It is going to be a close game. It is going to be a high-scoring game. I think the Chiefs are going to get out to a big lead. I think the Bucs are going to come back, and I think at the end the Chiefs will be able to hold off. They'll make a big play. Patrick Mahomes will go back-to-back, and we will come here on Tuesday talking about, oh my goodness, has a dynasty begun in the NFL? Thank you guys so much for listening. Sit back, enjoy your Super Bowl Sunday. Be smart, be sensible, have fun with your family and friends. Just be smart about it. Remember, we still are in a pandemic, but I thank you guys for listening to the GSMC Football Podcast, which is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show, write a nice review. It really helps us out. We got a couple great reviews the other day. I haven't checked those out in a while, so I went and looked at them. Really, really love what I saw. So thank you for that. So a lot of kind words by you guys. Also, if you can, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you. Have a great night. Enjoy your Super Bowl Sunday. We'll talk to you again on Tuesday.